The letter trembled in Abigail Gilbert's hands as the stagecoach rumbled through the dusty plains of Nevada Territory. She pressed her palm against her stomach, feeling the slight swell beneath her modest traveling dress. 4 months along, and she had managed to hide it from everyone, including the man waiting for her in Panamint, the man who would become her husband before sundown tomorrow. It was 1873, and Abigail had few choices after finding herself with child and abandoned by the father, a charming salesman who had promised marriage before disappearing from Boston without a trace. At 22, she faced ruin back east, her family's disappointment too heavy to bear. The advertisement in the newspaper had seemed like divine providence. Hardworking rancher seeks bride of good character, passage paid, reply to Ethan Valenti, Panamint, Nevada Territory. 3 letters had been exchanged, vague pleasantries and practical discussions of ranch life. She had sent a daguerreotype showing only her face, shoulders draped in her Sunday best. He had been equally sparing with details about himself, mentioning only that he had a prosperous cattle operation and a newly built home waiting for a woman's touch. Neither had delved into personal histories. Now, as the coach approached its final destination, Abigail's deception weighed heavier than her growing child. Panamint, 10 minutes, the driver called down. Abigail straightened her back and adjusted her bonnet. Her hands trembled as she smoothed the fabric over her stomach. The dark blue traveling dress had been cleverly altered, with extra fabric giving it a fashionable fullness that disguised her condition. She had planned it all carefully, calculating that she could hide her pregnancy until after the wedding. By then, she reasoned, he would be legally bound to her and perhaps she could convince him the child came early, a shameful plan, but desperation had hardened her resolve. The alternative was unthinkable. The stagecoach lurched to a stop and Abigail clutched her small carpet bag. Through the dusty window, she caught her first glimpse of Panamint, a collection of wooden buildings stretching along a wide dirt street, mountains rising in the distance. Men in dusty clothes and wide-brimmed hats moved with purpose, while a few women in plain dresses hurried between errands. "Miss Gilbert," the driver opened the door, offering his hand. "Welcome to Panamint." Her boots touched Nevada soil for the first time, and Abigail nearly stumbled from the coach, legs stiff from the long journey. That would be her. A deep voice caught her attention. Abigail turned to face a tall man stepping forward from the small crowd that had gathered to meet the stage. He removed his hat, revealing dark hair with hints of copper in the late afternoon sun. His face was weathered but not unkind, with clear blue eyes studying her carefully. He was perhaps 30, with broad shoulders and the confident stance of a man accustomed to hard work and making decisions. "Miss Gilbert," he said, stepping forward. "Ethan Valenti, welcome to Panamint." Abigail extended her hand, hoping he wouldn't notice its trembling. "Mr. Valenti. Thank you for arranging my passage." His handshake was firm but not crushing, his skin rough with calluses. "You must be exhausted. I've arranged for you to stay at the boarding house tonight. The wedding's set for tomorrow afternoon, if that suits you." She nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by the reality of her situation. "That would be fine, Mr. Valenti." "Ethan," he corrected, taking her carpet bag despite her protests. "We'll be married tomorrow. Might as well use my given name." As he led her toward a modest building with a hand-painted sign reading Mrs. Holloway's boarding house, Abigail felt eyes upon her. Several townspeople had stopped to watch the exchange, some nodding in greeting, others simply curious about the new arrival. "Don't mind them," Ethan said quietly. "We don't get many new faces, especially not." He trailed off, seeming uncomfortable, "especially not mail-order brides." Abigail finished for him, mustering a small smile, a corner of his mouth lifted. "I was going to say especially not ladies from back east, but yes, that too." Inside the boarding house, a plump woman with gray streaked hair greeted them warmly. "You must be Miss Gilbert. I'm Martha Holloway. We've got your room all ready." Ethan set down Abigail's bag. "I'll leave you to get settled. Supper's at 6 if you're feeling up to it. If not, Mrs. Holloway can bring something up." "Thank you, but I'll join you for supper." Abigail said. She needed to begin as she meant to go on hiding her condition would require careful vigilance. Once alone in the small but clean room, Abigail sank onto the narrow bed, finally allowing her composure to crack. Tears threatened, but she blinked them back fiercely. There would be time for tears later. Now, she needed to prepare for the role of a lifetime. At the washstand, she cleaned the travel dust from her face and hands, then changed into her second-best dress, a forest green with modest ruffles at the throat and wrists. Like her traveling dress, it had been altered to conceal her growing belly. The sickness that had plagued her first months had mercifully subsided, but fatigue still swept over her in waves. Abigail studied her reflection in the small mirror. Her auburn hair was simply styled, framing a heart-shaped face with hazel eyes that appeared larger now, shadowed with worry. She pinched her pale cheeks for color and practiced a pleasant expression. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. "For the baby." Supper was a simple but hearty affair with Mrs. Holloway presiding over a table shared by Ethan and two other boarders, a young schoolteacher and an older man who worked at the assayer's office. Conversation flowed more easily than Abigail had feared with Mrs. Holloway, tactfully steering topics toward town news and away from personal inquiries that might discomfit the newcomer. Ethan spoke little, but Abigail felt his gaze studying her throughout the meal. She ate carefully, mindful that pregnancy sometimes affected appetite in noticeable ways. "The minister's wife is hosting a small gathering after the ceremony tomorrow," Ethan mentioned as the meal concluded. "Nothing elaborate, but folks want to welcome you proper." Abigail nodded, her stomach clenching with anxiety. "That's very kind." "My ranch is about 5 miles out of town," he continued. "Good land, good water. The house is new, built it myself this past year, 2 bedrooms." He paused, color touching his cheeks. "Thought we might need the extra room someday." The pointed reference to future children made Abigail's heart race. She managed a demure smile. "It sounds lovely." Later, alone again in her room, Abigail sat at the small writing desk and penned a letter to her younger sister back in Boston, the only family member who knew her true situation. The words flowed easily at first, describing the journey and her first impressions of Panamint. She faltered when trying to describe Ethan. "He seems a good man," she finally wrote, though reserved. "His eyes are kind, I think. I can only pray that kindness extends to forgiveness, for I fear I shall need it in abundance when my secret is revealed." She sealed the letter, planning to post it in the morning, and prepared for bed. Sleep came fitfully, her dreams filled with images of an angry Ethan discovering her deception, of being cast out into the wilderness with her child. Morning brought sunshine streaming through the simple muslin curtains. Abigail dressed carefully in a blue dress she had saved for her wedding day. A light breakfast was all she could manage, her nerves making her stomach rebel. Mrs. Holloway helped her prepare, arranging her hair and producing a small bouquet of wildflowers and garden blooms. "Something borrowed," she said, pinning a small cameo to Abigail's collar. "It was my mother's." "Thank you," Abigail whispered, touched by the kindness of this stranger. The ceremony itself was brief, held in the small white church at the end of the main street. A dozen townspeople attended, curious about the newcomer who had captured the interest of the solitary rancher. Reverend Porter spoke of duty and companionship rather than love, which seemed fitting for their arrangement. When it came time to speak her vows, Abigail's voice held steady, though guilt twisted inside her with each promise of honesty and faithfulness. Ethan's hands were warm as he slipped a simple gold band onto her finger. His own vows were spoken clearly, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "Mr. Valenti, you may kiss your bride." Abigail had not considered this moment. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes questioning. She tilted her face up and his lips brushed hers gently, a fleeting touch that nonetheless sent warmth spreading through her. The reception at the minister's home was a simple affair with cake and punch, neighbors offering congratulations and barely disguised curiosity. Abigail accepted their good wishes with as much grace as she could muster. all while keeping her posture carefully controlled to hide her condition. By mid-afternoon, Ethan was loading her trunk onto his wagon. "Ready to see your new home, Mrs. Valenti," the name startled her. "Yes, I believe I am." The 5-mile journey took them away from town and into rolling grasslands dotted with scrub and the occasional cluster of trees. Cattle grazed in the distance, and the mountains provided a dramatic backdrop. Despite her anxiety, Abigail found the landscape beautiful in its stark openness. "There it is," Ethan said eventually, pointing to a house that appeared on the horizon. It was larger than she had expected, a 2-story structure of solid timber with a wide front porch. Nearby stood a barn and several outbuildings, all well maintained. A vegetable garden was visible to one side, and a windmill turned lazily above a water tank. "You built this yourself?" Abigail asked, genuinely impressed. A touch of pride entered Ethan's voice. "Had help with the framing, but did most of the finish work on my own. Took nearly a year." He helped her down from the wagon, his hands strong at her waist. Abigail held her breath, wondering if he could feel the slight swell of her belly, but his expression remained unchanged. "Welcome home," he said, opening the front door. The interior was simple but comfortable, with sturdy furniture and clean lines. A large stone fireplace dominated the main room, with a kitchen area visible beyond. Stairs led to the upper floor, where Abigail presumed the bedrooms were located. "It's lovely," she said, meaning it. Ethan nodded, seeming pleased by her approval. "Kitchen's stocked, but I'm no cook." "Been eating at the boarding house or making do with simple fare?" "I'll prepare supper," Abigail offered, eager to establish herself as useful. "I'll bring in your things and see to the horses," he replied. Alone in the kitchen, Abigail familiarized herself with its contents. Despite his disclaimer, Ethan had provided. There were staples, preserved foods, and even some fresh vegetables from the garden. She set about preparing a simple but hearty meal, finding comfort in the familiar task. Supper passed pleasantly enough, with conversation focused on practical matters: the running of the ranch, the changing seasons, Abigail's journey west. Ethan proved more talkative in private than he had been in town, asking thoughtful questions about her life in Boston, though careful to avoid sensitive topics. Evening brought the moment Abigail had been both dreading and anticipating. Ethan showed her to the main bedroom, a spacious room with a large bed, a dresser, and a washstand. "I'll sleep in the other room tonight," he said quietly. "Give you time to settle in." Surprise must have shown on her face, for he added, "We're strangers still, Abigail. I won't rush what should come natural in time." Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by a fresh wave of guilt. His consideration only made her deception worse. "Thank you," she managed. "That's very thoughtful," he nodded, awkward now. "Well, good night then." "Good night, Ethan." Alone, Abigail undressed carefully, allowing herself to cradle her growing belly for the first time in days. "We're safe for now, little one," she whispered. "But what happens when he discovers you? What happens when he learns I've lied?" Sleep came eventually, but morning found her no closer to a solution. She rose early, determined to prove her worth as a wife before her secret was discovered. By the time Ethan came downstairs, she had breakfast prepared and was already planning the day's chores. Days passed in a rhythm of work and cautious conversation. Abigail threw herself into household duties, cleaning, cooking, mending, anything to demonstrate her value. Ethan worked from dawn till dusk, returning tired but always considerate, never pressuring her for wifely intimacies. Each night he retired to the second bedroom, leaving Abigail to her increasingly difficult secret. Her 5th month progressed, and disguising her condition became more challenging. She let out seams, wore aprons, and adopted styles that concealed her growing form, but she knew discovery was inevitable. Each day she resolved to tell him, and each day courage failed her. Ethan, for his part, remained something of a mystery. He was unfailingly polite, occasionally revealing flashes of dry humor or unexpected tenderness. He brought her wildflowers once, having noticed her admiring them along the roadside. Another time, he returned from town with a book, remembering her mention of enjoying poetry. These glimpses of thoughtfulness made her deception all the harder to bear. They were approaching their 1-month anniversary when disaster struck. Abigail was hanging laundry when a sudden wave of dizziness washed over her. The world tilted, and darkness encroached on her vision. She was unconscious before she hit the ground. She woke to find herself on their bed, Ethan's worried face hovering above her. His expression told her everything. His hand rested lightly on her abdomen, where her secret was now unmistakable. "How long?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled. Abigail closed her eyes, unable to face him. 5 months, silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken accusations. "You weren't going to tell me." It wasn't a question. "I was," she whispered. "I just needed time." Ethan stood abruptly, pacing to the window. His back to her, shoulders rigid with tension. "Whose child is it?" "A man in Boston. He promised marriage, then disappeared." Another long silence. When he turned, his expression was hard, unreadable. "I need some air." He left without another word, the front door closing firmly behind him. Abigail curled onto her side, tears finally coming in great, gulping sobs. It was over. All her plans, her hopes for security shattered. She was still lying there, tear-stained and hollow, when Ethan returned hours later. The setting sun cast long shadows through the window as he entered the bedroom and sat heavily in the chair beside the bed. "No secrets survive under this roof, Abigail," he said finally. "I won't have a marriage built on lies." She nodded miserably. "I understand." "I'll leave as soon as I can make arrangements." Ethan frowned. "Leave? Who said anything about leaving?" Confusion replaced despair. "But you said—" "I said no secrets," he interrupted. "Not no child, not no wife." He ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling. "I'm not happy you lied." "But I made vows too, Abigail, vows I intend to keep." Hope fluttered, fragile as a newly hatched butterfly. "You'd raise another man's child." "It would be my child," he said simply. "If I'm the one teaching it to ride, to read, to be honorable, that makes it mine in every way that matters." Fresh tears spilled, these born of relief rather than despair. "Why would you do this?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "I know what it's like to be unwanted," he finally said. "My father made it clear every day that I was a burden, not a blessing. No child deserves that. And no woman deserves to face the world alone when she's carrying life inside her." He reached out, hesitantly touching her hand. "I don't know much about being a father, but I reckon I know what not to do, and that's a start." Abigail curled her fingers around his. "I'm sorry I lied to you." "Don't lie again," he said firmly. "Whatever comes, we face it honest." She nodded, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "No more secrets." That night marked a turning point. Though Ethan still slept in the second bedroom, their conversations grew deeper, more genuine. Abigail shared the full story of her seduction and abandonment. In turn, Ethan spoke of his own past, raised by a brutal father after his mother's death in childbirth, leaving home at 16 to make his own way. "I worked cattle drives for years," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Saved every penny until I had enough for a small herd of my own, been building ever since." "You've accomplished so much," Abigail said. "You should be proud." He shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "Had this place, but it wasn't a home, just walls and a roof without someone to share it." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Abigail felt something shift in her chest, an unfamiliar warmth spreading. As her pregnancy progressed, Ethan's protectiveness grew. He insisted she rest more, hired a local girl to help with heavier chores, and began spending more time at the house rather than in the distant pastures. His hands, so capable with horses and cattle, proved surprisingly gentle when feeling the baby's kicks for the first time. "Strong," he commented, wonder in his voice. "Like its mother." Autumn came to Panamint, bringing cooler days and spectacular sunsets. Abigail's 7th month found her sewing baby clothes while Ethan built a cradle, his skilled hands crafting each piece with care. They placed it in their bedroom, for Ethan had finally, tentatively, joined her there, though their relationship remained chaste by mutual agreement until after the birth. On a crisp October morning, Abigail awoke to find Ethan gone from bed, a note on his pillow. "Gone to town, back by noon. Rest." She smiled at his increasingly frequent reminders to take care of herself, then set about her morning routine. She was kneading bread dough when the front door opened. "You're back early," she called, not looking up from her work. "Afraid not, darlin'." The unfamiliar voice sent ice through her veins. Abigail turned slowly to find a stranger in her kitchen, a tall, thin man with greasy hair and a pockmarked face, a revolver hanging loosely from his right hand. "Who are you?" she demanded, one hand instinctively covering her prominent belly. The man grinned, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. "Name's Holt. Your husband and I have unfinished business." Fear constricted her throat. "My husband isn't here, I can see that," Holt drawled. "Which is why I'm gonna wait nice and comfortable." His gaze traveled to her stomach. My, Valenti works fast, don't he?" Abigail straightened, fighting to keep her voice steady. "What business do you have with my husband?" Holt settled into a kitchen chair, keeping the gun aimed in her general direction. "He took something that belonged to me, cattle to be specific, about 50 head 3 years back." "That's not possible," Abigail said firmly. "My husband is an honorable man," laughter harsh and mocking. "Honey, your honorable man was riding with the Barton gang when I knew him. Rustled my entire herd while I was laid up with fever." The words hit like physical blows. "Ethan, a cattle rustler, a criminal, it couldn't be true. You're lying," she managed, though doubt crept in like poison. "Ask him yourself," Holt said, "though you might want to inquire why he never mentioned having a price on his head in Texas." Abigail's mind raced. Was this why Ethan had been so vague about his past? Why he'd settled in this remote corner of Nevada? Had she escaped one deception only to be trapped in another? "What do you want?" she asked, buying time. "Justice," Holt replied, "or compensation. 5,000 ought to cover my losses." An impossible sum. Abigail knew that while the ranch was prosperous, their cash reserves were modest. "Most of Ethan's wealth was in land and livestock. We don't have that kind of money," she said. "Then I'll take it in blood." Holt's casual tone made the threat all the more terrifying. "But first, you'll fix me something to eat. Being vengeful works up an appetite." For the next 2 hours, Abigail moved about the kitchen under Holt's watchful eye, preparing a meal she hoped he would choke on. All the while, her mind worked frantically, seeking escape or advantage. The baby kicked repeatedly, sensing her distress, a sound from outside horses approaching. Holt moved to the window, peering out cautiously. "Right on time," he muttered. "Now, you be a good girl and don't make a sound. Wouldn't want that baby coming without its daddy getting to say goodbye." He positioned himself beside the door, gun raised. Abigail's heart hammered in her chest as footsteps approached the porch. The door swung open. "Abigail, I brought." Ethan froze mid-sentence, taking in the scene before him. "Hello, Valenti," Holt said. "Been a while." Recognition, then resignation flashed across Ethan's face. "Holt." His eyes sought Abigail's, concern evident. "Are you all right?" She nodded, unable to speak past the knot of fear in her throat. "Your wife's been real hospitable," Holt said. "Now drop that package and step inside, slow and easy." Ethan complied, his movements careful. The package, a parcel wrapped in brown paper, fell to the floor with a soft thud. "You know why I'm here," Holt continued. "I figured this day might come," Ethan replied, his voice calm despite the gun pointed at his chest. "But you've got it wrong, Holt. I wasn't with the Barton gang when they hit your place. I'd already split from them." Convenient story. "It's the truth. I was in Fort Worth when they raided your ranch. Court records would show it. I was testifying against Sam Barton that very day." Uncertainty flickered across Holt's face. "You expect me to believe you turned on your own gang?" "They weren't my gang," Ethan said firmly. "I rode with them for 6 months when I was 20 and stupid, got out when I realized what they really were." He took a careful step forward. "Check the records. Sam Barton hung because of my testimony. That's why I left Texas. His brothers swore revenge." The moment stretched, tension thick enough to cut. Abigail found herself holding her breath, one hand pressed protectively against her belly. "Even if that's true," Holt said finally, "you still owe me. Could have warned me they were coming." "I didn't know. I was trying to put that life behind me." Ethan's gaze shifted to Abigail briefly. "Still am." Something in his tone, a raw honesty, seemed to reach Holt. The gun lowered slightly. I can't give you 5,000, Ethan continued, but I can offer fair compensation. 3 good breeding bulls and 20 heifers help you rebuild. Holt considered this, greed warring with vengeance in his expression. Throw in 500 cash and we got a deal. Done, Ethan agreed without hesitation, the gun lowered completely. I'll be back tomorrow with help to move those cattle. You try to run, I'll hunt you to the ends of the earth. I don't run from my debts, Ethan said quietly. After Holt departed, tension still crackling in his wake, silence filled the kitchen. Abigail sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her. Are you really all right? Ethan asked, kneeling before her, hands gently examining her for injury. Not hurt, she managed, just frightened. And confused, his face fell. You heard everything. Enough. She met his gaze directly. Were you going to tell me about your past? Ethan sighed heavily, sitting back on his heels. Yes, eventually. It's not something I'm proud of, Abigail. I was young, angry at the world, made bad choices. You rode with outlaws. For a time. Then I saw what they really were during a raid. They killed a man in front of his family, shot him down like he was nothing. His voice roughened with old pain. I left that night, later testified when they were caught, had to leave Texas afterward. Too many of their friends wanted me dead. Abigail processed this, trying to reconcile the honorable man she'd come to know with this revelation. No secrets survive under this roof, she quoted softly. Your words, shame crossed his features. I know, I'm sorry, Abigail, I should have told you. Yes, she agreed, you should have. She paused, weighing her next words carefully. But I understand why you didn't. Some secrets feel too heavy to share, too likely to destroy what we're trying to build. Hope flickered in his eyes. I'm not that man anymore, haven't been for a long time. I believe you, and she did, she realized. The Ethan she knew who treated his horses with gentle hands, who built a cradle with loving care, who never pushed for more than she was ready to give, this was the real Ethan. The past was just that past. No more secrets, she said firmly. From either of us, he nodded, relief evident. No more secrets. It was only then that Abigail noticed the fallen package on the floor. What did you bring from town? Color touched Ethan's cheeks as he retrieved it. It's, well, for the baby. He unwrapped the package to reveal a small, beautifully crafted wooden horse. Thought every child should have a special toy, something made just for them. Tears sprang to Abigail's eyes as she accepted the gift, fingers tracing the smooth lines. It's beautiful, Ethan. There's something else, he said, reaching into his pocket. Been carrying this for weeks, waiting for the right moment. He withdrew a small silver locket on a delicate chain. Belonged to my mother, only thing of hers I have, wanted you to have it, you and the baby. Abigail accepted it with trembling hands, opening the locket to find it empty. There's no picture. Thought maybe we could put one of the baby inside, and one of you, his voice grew husky. My family, the word hung between them, laden with meaning. Abigail looked up to find Ethan watching her intently, vulnerability raw in his expression. Abigail, he said softly, I know this isn't how either of us planned our lives to go, but I want you to know I don't regret answering your letter. Don't regret marrying you. And I won't regret raising this child as my own. Ethan, let me finish, he interrupted gently. What I'm trying to say badly is that somewhere along the way, this stopped being just an arrangement for me. I care for you, Abigail, more than I thought possible. The confession, so unexpected, left her momentarily speechless. In the silence, doubt crept across his features. It's all right if you don't feel the same, he added quickly. I know this isn't the love match you probably dreamed of. It isn't, she agreed, finding her voice. It's better. His eyebrows rose in question. I dreamed of romance and poetry, Abigail explained. Pretty words and grand gestures. What I've found instead is a man who builds a home with his own hands, who accepts a child not his own without question, who faces his past mistakes with honesty. Her voice softened. I've found a man worth loving, Ethan Valenti, and I do love you. The words, once spoken, felt right, a truth she hadn't recognized until this moment. Joy transformed Ethan's face, years seeming to fall away. He leaned forward, one hand cupping her cheek with infinite tenderness. May I kiss my wife? You'd better, she whispered. Their lips met in a kiss unlike their brief wedding exchange, this one deep with newfound emotion, sweet with promise. When they parted, Abigail felt breathless, as though the world had tilted and rearranged itself around them. The baby chose that moment to deliver a particularly vigorous kick. Ethan laughed, placing a hand on her belly. "Strong opinions already," he commented. "Takes after its mother." "Her mother," Abigail corrected. "I'm certain it's a girl, a daughter," Ethan said, testing the word. His expression softened. "I'll teach her to ride and rope and shoot straight and read poetry," Abigail added. "And dance, all of it," he agreed. "Everything she wants to learn." The next morning brought Holt as promised, with 2 ranch hands to help move the cattle Ethan had pledged. The transaction proceeded without incident, though tension remained high until the men departed with their payment. Will he cause trouble again? Abigail asked as they watched dust rise from the departing riders. Ethan shook his head. "Holt's many things, but he keeps his word. Our debt is settled." True to his prediction, they heard no more from the man. Life resumed its rhythm, though now with a deeper understanding between them. Their relationship blossomed with new openness, conversations stretching late into the night as they shared hopes and fears, dreams and disappointments. Winter descended on the Nevada range, bringing snow that transformed the landscape into a pristine wonderland. Abigail's time grew near, her body heavy with the child who would arrive with the new year. Ethan became increasingly attentive, refusing to venture far from the house despite ranch responsibilities. "Jenkins can handle it," he insisted when she expressed concern. "I'm not risking being miles away when my daughter decides to make her appearance." The possessive "my daughter" warmed Abigail's heart each time he said it. In Ethan's mind, it seemed, the distinction between biological and chosen fatherhood had already dissolved. On a cold January morning, with snow falling gently outside their bedroom window, Abigail woke to the first pains. By evening, after hours of labor with Mrs. Holloway and the town's midwife in attendance, she delivered a healthy baby girl with a shock of dark hair and eyes that would later settle into a deep hazel. Ethan, who had paced the house like a caged mountain lion throughout her labor, was the first person she asked for when it was over. "Come meet your daughter," she said, exhausted but radiant as he entered the room. The sight of this strong, capable man, rendered speechless by 7 pounds of new life, brought fresh tears to Abigail's eyes. Ethan accepted the swaddled bundle with careful hands, wonder transforming his weathered features. "She's perfect," he whispered, one finger gently tracing the baby's cheek. "What shall we call her?" They had discussed names but hadn't settled on one. Looking at her daughter's face, Abigail knew. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." Ethan nodded, understanding the significance. "Hope Valenti, it's a good name." In the weeks that followed, Ethan proved himself a devoted father, rising for night feedings, walking the floor with a colicky infant, watching in fascination as Hope began to discover her world. His gentleness with her confirmed what Abigail had already come to believe, that the mistakes of his youth had shaped, but not defined him. Spring brought new calves to the ranch and new routines to their household. Abigail discovered that motherhood, while exhausting, fulfilled something in her she hadn't known was empty. Ethan expanded the vegetable garden and began plans for an addition to the house. "Thought maybe a room just for Hope as she grows," he explained, "and perhaps room for more children." Someday, the question in his voice made Abigail smile. Their marriage had fully blossomed in the months since Hope's birth, physical love following the emotional connection they'd built. "I think that's an excellent plan," she agreed, leaning into his embrace. "Though perhaps we should give Hope a year or two of being the center of our world first." By Hope's first birthday, the addition was complete, a cheerful nursery with windows facing the morning sun and shelves already filling with wooden animals Ethan carved in the evenings. The celebration was small but joyful, with Martha Holloway and a few close neighbors from surrounding ranches joining them. As twilight settled over the ranch that evening, Abigail and Ethan sat on the porch swing, Hope sleeping soundly inside after the excitement of the day. "Did you ever imagine this?" Abigail asked, her head resting on his shoulder. When you sent for a mail-order bride, Ethan considered the question. No, he admitted. I was just looking for companionship, someone to share the work and maybe ease the loneliness. His arm tightened around her. Never expected to find my heart's home. The phrase, so poetic from her usually pragmatic husband, touched Abigail deeply. Nor I, she whispered. When I sent that first letter, I was desperate, afraid, looking for safety, not love. And now. She tilted her face up to his, the love of the past year reflected in her eyes. Now I can't imagine any other life, any other man, any other father for hope and any children we might be blessed with. His kiss was tender, a reaffirmation of all they'd built together. When they parted, he reached into his pocket. Been meaning to give you this, he said, placing a small package in her hand. Inside, Abigail found a gold wedding band to match her simple original ring, but this one was intricately engraved with a pattern of intertwined vines. I had it made in Carson City, Ethan explained. Wanted something that showed how our lives have grown together. Thought maybe we could have a proper ceremony, renew our vows, but this time with no secrets between us. Just truth and love. Tears blurred Abigail's vision as she slipped the ring onto her finger beside its plainer companion. I would like that very much. They renewed their vows on a perfect spring day, with 2-year-old Hope toddling between them, clutching flowers in chubby hands. The ceremony, held in the same church where they'd first married, was attended by nearly the entire town of Panamint, who had come to respect the hard-working rancher and his Eastern bride. This time, when Reverend Porter spoke of love and honesty, the words resonated with genuine meaning. Their kiss, witnessed by friends and one very curious toddler, sealed not just their legal union, but the emotional bond that had grown despite, or perhaps because of the challenges they had faced together. Later that night, with Hope sleeping peacefully and moonlight spilling through their bedroom window, Abigail lay in Ethan's arms, contemplating the journey that had brought them here. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. Taking in a woman carrying another man's child. Accepting a life you didn't plan for, Ethan propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her with an expression that still had the power to make her heart race. Not for a single moment, he said firmly. The day you stepped off that stage was the luckiest day of my life, even if I was too blind to see it then. His hand drifted to her stomach, where their second child, conceived in love rather than deception, was just beginning to show. This family you, Hope, this new little one, you're the best parts of me, Abigail, the parts I never knew were missing until I found them. As his lips found hers again, Abigail reflected on the strange alchemy that had transformed desperation into destiny, arrangement into love. Their beginning had been built on secrets and necessity, but their future stretched before them, rich with possibility, honesty, and a love that had proven stronger than either could have imagined. Under the vast Nevada sky, the ranch house stood solid and welcoming, a testament to second chances and the family that had found their way home to each other.